Someone involved in this report. I'm joined by economist Mike Schussler. Thanks for being with us.
Pleasure.
So this is what we want, the wage gap what it does for inequality, not everything because there's still unemployed people, but at least it's narrowing. Is this something to celebrate?
Yes, I think it is something to celebrate in a bigger picture sense. But I think in certain senses, maybe in some sectors, the minimum wages have risen very quickly. And so we've seen a rolling up or less people being employed in those minimum wage positions, which has led to higher rates of unemployment. And that is perhaps the negative side of that closing of the wage gap. And we've seen it in over 13 different sectors. We've seen significant closures of the wage gap in the agreements that we've gone back, in some cases, to 1979 on.
So it's always that if you're in a job, you're looking okay in this country, but if you're not, that chasm is ever widening.
Yes, if you take it, for example, as somebody in junior management used to earn 5 times that of somebody on the factory floor or on the mining floor, now only earns 3 times that. So you can see there's been a significant reduction in the gap between the junior person and, let's put it, the first step of management. This excludes directors and CEOs. So ultimately, we've got to say to ourselves, that is a very good success story for the trade unions. But at the same time, because we have less people on the bottom of the employment ladder, we've also seen more people unemployed.
So finally, what happens when 3,500 Rand comes in as a minimum wage?
I don't think too much is going to happen. There are going to be a few sectors that struggle: farming, domestic workers, security and so on. But in most cases, we've got the wage agreements that are already in excess of 3,500. In many of the sectors, in fact, it's double the 20 Rand per hour. For example, the metal industry, the mining industry, it's above double that already.
All right, thank you. So looking at the Labour report, and Mike, please stay with us. We've asked you to because you have a strong opinion on Bitcoin, which is our focus tonight. So before you speak to Peter with Arthur Goldstuck, let's set this up. Of course, you'll be a part of that conversation, and we're asking whether you should spend your bonus on Bitcoin. Linked to that is the question, is Bitcoin in a bubble? Now, bubbles happen when there's a lot of hype and goods become overvalued, leading to spectacular losses when it all ends. The Vice President of the European Central Bank made headlines earlier this year when he said cryptocurrencies were a purely speculative asset, and I think you somewhat agree with that, meaning they don't seem to have a strong intrinsic or fundamental value, and investors are risking a lot by trying to bag the big money. He compared them to the tulip mania, the 17th century bubble experienced in the Netherlands. The value from Bitcoin, of course, comes from what people decide it is. Without the intervention of central banks, they could change their minds. Now, looking at this, there is an old saying that when shoe shine boys are giving you stock tips, it's time to sell. But that's when many people buy. And earlier I spoke to Lee Riley from IG for an investor view, and he was saying the problem is what you can see here is the smart money institutions, then the public gets involved just before things peak and possibly come down. Of course, you never know when it's going to happen, but often we, as the small people, get involved at the wrong time. So before that panel interview, let's hear what Lee Riley had to say.